Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode here on the Jingled server. And welcome to Jingle Land, where Ice Ice Baby and sandals are up for sale. Also, newly found Durite game over here, yep. And in this direction, Dig Straight Down has been renamed to DDR. I have no idea what DDR could mean, but there is a sign. Oh, hashtag Jingled. Well, the Jingler has returned at roughly around the same time a certain hermit who loves diamonds has returned. Then again, every hermit loves diamonds. What a terrible description. You probably know what slimy fella I'm talking about, right? I think I know who is responsible for this. Anyways, we are in this area because the Undying game needs some attending to. We had a contestant known by the name of Zombie Cleo play this game while there were beacons activated, which caused a bit of a problem. These were activated, I believe, because Cub has been renovating his Ravager's Run game. What a nice combination of blocks this is right here. However, what an absolute grind to cover this entire area with this massive build. Crazy. Anyway, let's go ahead. We got to set up a little redstone contraption down the bottom here that is simply going to push some blocks in front of the beacon beams to shut them off when someone is playing this game. So we got some pistons there to push the blocks in front of the beams. There's a wire that goes down and around underground. And from here we can activate it, and I think these signs are enough to catch your eye. Might change that block to another colour, but when we do that, did they already disappear? Because I think they were just out of sight. Let's do that. Yeah, instant. Well, almost instant. But there we go, it works. There's also something else I wanted to do here as well, which was put some carpets on top of all of these blocks, because I got a feeling mobs might be able to spawn on them at night and wander into the game. And, aha, look at this. I did prepare. I brought a load of grey wool over here, so we'll convert that into carpets. And then we put those carpets on top of the blocks at the top of the Undying game, which are away from the light sources. That should stop any mobs interfering with the game. Also, only 3 hermits have played this so far. I need to do a better job of promoting this game, right? Anyway, in today's episode, we will most likely be jumping all over the place. And I want to spend a little bit of time in Tower Bay building something on top of this mammoth tower that Python has put together right here. I also see a gold nugget. I am definitely going to pick that up in a moment. I would like to quickly show you what Python has been up to over on his side of the island. As you can see, laying down some foundations and some plans for buildings and pathways and the border of these areas using an extraordinary amount of quartz. It is going to look amazing. Oh, I love this area so much. And speaking of the quartz, we actually built a tower entirely out of quartz over there, where the pink one now is, and because of that I actually got myself 3 full shulker boxes full of quartz, and we're going to put that to use over here because I want to build a kind of logo for the top of this area. First things first, you're going to need a background in which to build in front of, so it's easier to look at the letters, and I wanted to add 2 of them here, T and B for Tower Bay, and I started off with the smallest type of letter because this is basically the most common for when you're creating signs. However, here we want to make something really big that people can see from afar, and it's only got 2 letters, so I decided to scale up the size a little bit here, and at first it just looked kind of bland. So then I thought, why don't we try and introduce some shapes and some curves on the edges of this? So I took out some of the blocks at the edges and put in quartz stairs, and the further I got into this, the weirder and weirder the font got. And yeah, it ended up looking pretty bizarre. Clearly, we needed to go bigger, so I decided to make blobs of 3x3 blocks for our pixels, and then I had to adjust that to make the B work, and we ended up with this really big blob that wasn't too bad, but again, it needed some tweaking here. So one of the stylized fonts I've seen online is where people cut out a streak down the letter. So I cut one out down the T and then down the B, and it ended up looking like T13, which is not what we were looking for. So I ripped all of that out and decided to start again with a smaller scale like we had before, but this time I decided to work in some curves and some angles to make it look interesting using stairs, and then threw in a couple of slabs as well, and ended up with something really quite good here. But then I kept looking at the T and I wanted to change it so that its quartz stairs would match that of the B, and I don't actually think it looks any better, so we might have to revert this. It is much better this way around, right? And the more I look at it, I realise the bottom of the T kind of creates a line to the top of the B there. So it does actually work. They complement each other well. And I've gone ahead and built another one on the opposite side. So if you approach from either direction, you'll be able to see the letters T and B for Tower Bay. Now what we're going to do next is light this up and then start to build a structure behind it as well. And the way that we're going to light it up is with end rods, because this is the smallest hitbox, I think, for something that emits light that you can easily place on the back of this. And we're going to put it behind the full blocks, because if we put it on the partials, it becomes more visible from different angles. Now the angles at which you'll be able to look at the T and the B means the only thing you'll really see is the particle effects, but because this is high up in the world, you're going to be too far away for those to generate, so I'm hoping you're not going to be able to see a thing. And then directly behind these end rods, we're going to have like a black wall back here, and that is why I've created so much of this black concrete. So nighttime has arrived, and that's fantastic because it allows us to see this thing well and truly illuminated. As we get a little bit close and we start to look upwards, you can see the end rods underneath the T, but it's really not that visible from most of the angles at which you look at it. So that's awesome. And now what we're going to do is start to build up this black concrete and build a big object around the entirety of this thing, connecting it all together. So I've doubled up. This is now on both sides, looking good. However, when you approach it from the side, you can see there's a big gap between the two of them, and I'm just not sure what I want to do with that space just yet, so I'm going to give myself some time to think it over. What I have done though is covered up the light sources on top of here with some carpet, so now the roof looks a little bit cleaner. But we're done up here for now. I want to jump down below and talk about what project is going to go inside of this massive tower. It was quite some time ago that we built this storage facility right here, and when doing that we decided to use purpur blocks, and I discovered that no one else was selling purpur at the time, but because I had a stash of blocks kept away, it meant that I didn't need to make a farm, so I've kind of put it on the back burner. But now that we have the idea store, we want to be able to sell blocks that other hermits haven't done so yet, and so farming chorus fruit and flower and whatever it's called to make purpur blocks would be a really good idea for the new idea shop. Now when it comes to farming this stuff, you tend to need a big open space to grow all your chorus plants, and that's exactly what we have right here. However, it may just be possible to build a smaller compact farm for this chorus fruit. You see, what we have right here is a zero-tick generator. I saw this concept introduced by Ilmango, and it turns out that you can apply it to the chorus plant as well. Now we've already used this on the server for a cactus farm and for a bamboo farm, and we use it to create lots and lots of drops, and we might be able to do that again here. So we're going to generate a zero tick, and when it powers this piston and moves the block, it sends an update to this that causes it to grow. Let's go ahead and do that, and you can see we've forced it to grow, and we can actually repeat that process. Now when I last tried to do this, when I first investigated farming the chorus this season, I made some big sort of mistake with this setup that I'm about to show you, which is why I didn't do this project sooner. But revisiting it, I noticed my mistake, and it turns out it is possible to do this and grow it upwards consecutively. So if we kept having more and more of these on either side, and we kept pushing the blocks across, we could grow this stuff upwards, and when the root is broken by a block pushing into it, it can actually drop some of the chorus, which means we of course can farm it. Now what you're looking at here has gone through many iterations and design changes. I could just not get this concept to work over here, but let's flick the switch and you can kind of see the idea. Unfortunately it breaks the chorus flower. Now having rebuilt this, it looks possible again. However, if we go and add a block for where the next piston would push the next one across, we see some issues straight away. So if I power this, you see it likes to grow to the side, so then the next one would cause it to get destroyed. So I don't think I've got the time or the redstone knowledge to really get stuck into this one and figure out all of its quirks, but I do have another idea, and that is to take advantage of this in a way that requires player interaction. What if we turn this into a micro farm of sorts, right? Now here we've got a clock. This might not be the one we end up using, but you can see it gets these updates to push back and forth from either side. So whenever we put this block here, it instantly grows, and apparently it gets broken as well, which isn't actually what I wanted. I thought I had this figured out. It turns out maybe not then. I can barely believe this. The first thing that I've built works, and it does the job. And I believe it does the job inefficiently. So the only time that I need to get a signal is the first time I place this down. However, you can see we get 2 signals from the observer, and then when we break this we get a 3rd one, and then we get a 4th one. So I think that signals 2, 3 and 4 are kind of unnecessary, but still it means this thing works the way I want it to. And my idea was simply that a sticky piston would act as a T flip-flop, and that means that we can alternate which side gets pulsed every time an update comes through, and that alternating works out brilliantly because this thing will grow every time. So imagine that we have a player here in survival breaking these blocks. They will get the chorus flowers, and then they'll be able to place this back down again. I think I might have just made a problem for myself by having this block here though. Yeah, so we don't want that block there. So if I'm aiming at this and holding down left click, we can break that, and then if I right click we place a flower. So if I hold down both, maybe not. That needs to be in my offhand as well. Let's try it again. Okay, that totally didn't work. If we don't use the axe, we don't break it fast enough, and everything here seems to be working. I'm so glad that you can actually pick this up with your fist, because you need to mine this stuff slower, and if we were using a slower speed axe like a wooden one, that would add in all sorts of complications for AFKing, but as it currently stands, all I'm doing is just AFKing, right? I could leave this running overnight, and we would slowly get small amounts of chorus fruit. Oh, and did I mention it? You can also sort of stand where it grows. So right now I'm kind of inside. Look at me. I'm a chorus flower. That's wonderful, right? I'm going to use that for a thumbnail. That looks amazing. So you were probably expecting to see that nano micro farm design somewhere in here. That kind of was the plan, but I needed to get a lot of these flowers, so I decided to set up this temporary little farming bit right here. And I made a mistake. You should actually space these out by 1 block further, because this one right here, for example, can't grow into that space. But anyway, I've left the middle of this room open for 2 reasons. One is that we're going to eventually build the micro farm down here on the bottom floor, and if we go back to that vertical farm idea that I showed you earlier, we've got some space here in the middle to work with, but I think it would actually ruin the aesthetic of the room. Now the idea for each of these floors, and why I am gathering flowers, you know what, don't use rockets inside, is because we're actually going to grow these on this area as well, and this is actually more for aesthetic reasons. I think it'd be really cool to look up and see some chorus flower farms sort of growing in this area, and then when you look through the windows from the outside, there's going to be a lot to see as well. Anyway, we've got more work to do on this project, so we'll be coming back to it very soon, but for now I have something to show you from a project that I was working on earlier. That's right, my friends, we have created a map for the Idea Store. Now, maps are 128 blocks by 128 blocks, and that means that we used 3,574 wall blocks over here. Crazy, right? And of course, that would have meant an even crazier amount of blue blocks, but that's exactly why we have picked an ocean, because the ocean is blue, but many different colours of blue, as you can see right here. Let's zoom in on the map for a second so you can see those different shades of blue. And if we look out in front of us here, you can then see that it's the land that's higher up under the ocean that appears lighter on the map. That means I've got some underwater digging to do to finish this project off. Now, I was very prepared for this project. You can see that I had 15 empty maps here, and that was in case we opened up a map and there was some land nearby that made its way onto the map itself. But we're actually in the middle of a very large ocean here, so that turned out not to be a problem. We also used yellow wool blocks here, and some of you might be thinking, why didn't you use carpets? That would have prevented things like pillager patrols from spawning on top of it. Well, spawning isn't really a problem because we're not going to spend a lot of time here once the project is finished, right? If I'm to place down carpets, I would save yellow wool in terms of materials, but I would have to go and place a block at the same spot and then put a carpet on top of it. And since wool and yellow dye is really easy for us, we have a lot of it, it didn't really make much sense to use carpets. So then the only other challenge we faced was figuring out where the corner was, and I had to kind of eyeball it. I came over here and I was looking in the very corner of the map and placing these down, and it wasn't until after I did that that someone in my live stream chat suggested that we use F3 and G, and you can see it's actually lined up with the chunk border. So we eyeballed it and got the right result, but that's another way to do it in case you ever do one of these projects yourself. And so with a little bit of thought and preparation, this turned out to be a really easy project, but this is the next task for me, and I just wanted to do it on camera together here. However, looking at the map underwater, it's quite dark, so you have to kind of come back up to the surface, and you can see a little bit of the light blue that was there has now been removed. And to be more precise with this, I've just figured out the Y value, or the height. Let's have a look at what we, the player, are at. It's 53, and then the block that we're looking at is... It always takes me a minute to spot it. It's 52. So that's what I've got to clear it down to. When I'm standing here, it's 53, and the block is 52. And that is that now taken care of, with exception to this little bit on the map, I guess. But here's the cool thing. I collected a whole bunch of sand and gravel while I was doing that, so that ain't so bad. And now we're back at the interior of Python's tower on our side of Tower Bay. This place is developing wonderfully. Let's throw an ender pearl and just jump up here for a second, because this looks so cool on the inside. I reckon it's going to look really cool from the outside as well. But some of the chorus plants are still growing on the different floors because I've only just got round to planting them, because I've also just been filling in the middle of these pillars with some blue glass, and it looks fantastic. But when we look down here, it doesn't look right, does it? And I think what we need is yet another floor down here. So I'm going to extend the wood that we have here down the same height of the glass, and that will allow us to put a final floor made out of endstone at the very bottom of this area. And since it's also nighttime now, probably a great time to fly by. Yeah, look at that. That just adds so much. You can see that there's stuff inside that's interesting, and I love that logo on top. Things are slowly coming together inside of here. I just wanted to comment on mob spawning. If there's a place they can spawn, they will spawn there. Look at these two little spots. They've both got a mob inside. So what is this right here? It's not the redstone contraption you might have expected. And I was thinking just about how I would be AFKing and getting the chorus stuff rather slowly. I wouldn't actually mind just running around and picking the stuff up like this. I think it was a cool idea, but maybe it needs to be elaborated on or improved, you know? So for now we're going to do it the classic way, and this room is almost finished. I've got some sheep stuck in the corner over here and a couple of chests to clean up, which I'll do at another time. And so before we get out of here, I just kind of wanted to swoop down and show you how each of the floors look. It's so cool having the plants growing in here like this. And I know it's not an optimal way to farm, but it just looks so cool as a project. I also have an idea for what we're going to put up the top here. It's going to be very cool, but you're going to have to wait for another episode, and we'll be coming back and finishing this project, and I want to do all the things that I've got planned in this area and really start to wrap up Tower Bay. But anyway, that is it from me this episode. If you enjoyed it, then leave a like as always. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you soon with another one. Ciao for now. Bye bye.